The first Jhana. When you enter the first Jhana, you are still in touch with your physical senses. Your eyes are closed, but you can still hear, smell, feel, and taste. This is one definite indication of the first Jhana as opposed to others. You don't fully lose thought either. Thoughts come now and again. Since you have been thinking all your life, your thoughts do not disappear all of a sudden at the attainment of the first Jhana. They are like nervous habits, difficult to wipe out at once. They continue to haunt your mind periodically. Just ignore them. They are one of the things that will pull you out of Jhana. You want to be able to maintain it as long as you wish. This passage describes the moment you enter the first Jhana with all the Jhanic factors and qualities. Quiet, secluded from sense pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states of mind. One enters and dwells in the first Jhana, which is accompanied by applied thought and sustained thought, with rapture and happiness born of seclusion. A different kind of joy. When you finally overcome the 5 hindrances, you experience a great relief. This relief slowly increases until it culminates in piti, joy. This joy is purely internal. It does not arise dependent on worldly or household pleasures. Nothing outside you causes it. It arises through renouncing outward pleasure. This joy is called non-sensual joy. It does not gush into the mind suddenly. You have been experiencing pain arising from the hindrances for a long time. You have been working very hard to overcome those that have caused you pain. Now, every time you overcome one of them, you experience a great relief that that particular pain has subsided. It is this relief, this freedom from that particular hindrance that brings you joy. Now you no longer have the pain caused by that particular hindrance. It is gone. You rejoice. This is the state that the Buddha explained to Ajatasattu in the Samanyaphala Sutta. But when he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, he regards that as freedom from debt, as good health, as release from prison, as freedom from slavery, as a place of safety. When he sees that these 5 hindrances have been abandoned within himself, gladness arises. When he is gladdened, rapture arises. When his mind is filled with rapture, his body becomes tranquil. Tranquil in body, he experiences happiness. Being happy, his mind becomes concentrated. Because the hindrances have been overcome, your joy continues to increase. It arises cumulatively, slowly filling up the entire mind and body. This is the stage where you feel that your entire body and mind are diffused with joy and happiness like sugar or milk or salt mixed with water. The ordinary material joy we are accustomed to arises from contacting things that are desired, agreeable, gratifying, and associated with worldliness. They are simple, basic things like seeing forms, hearing sounds, smelling smells, tasting tastes, touching tangibles, and thinking mind objects. This is called joy based on the household life. When you seek and know the impermanence, the change, the fading away, and the cessation of all these things, a different joy arises. You perceive the forms, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and mind objects as they actually are. You see with proper wisdom. You know they are all impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. You see that they are like this now, and that they always were. Then a new joy arises. This is called joy based on renunciation. So you overcome joy based on the household life by the joy based on renunciation that is attained in Jhana. You can overcome grief based on the household life by the grief based on renunciation too. You can grieve for the loss of your dog or your car, or you can grieve over the unsatisfactoriness of all phenomena. One leads to further involvement with the source of grief, and the other leads away from that involvement. You overcome equanimity based on the household life by equanimity based on renunciation. Although equanimity is the ideally balanced state of mind, as long as it arises based on household life, it still is diversified. It is conditioned by individual things and circumstances. But the equanimity that arises in jhanic attainment is unified. It is based on the natural unity or one-pointedness of mind. It is based on concentration. This is the highest kind of equanimity. To regard all your children as exactly equal and treat them all just the same is a wonderful worldly goal. To regard every experience, good or bad, as equal lies beyond that. The 5 jhanic factors. Mindfulness is present in your jhana. You are awake. You notice, mindfulness, and recognize, clear comprehension, the components of your own experience. You do not notice the external world, but you are fully awake to the jhanic factors that comprise your internal experience. You are mindful of what is present. The 5 jhanic factors. A factor is a feature or aspect of something. It is a dynamic thing, often a cause of something else, often something you must do or have to make that second thing come into existence. In this case, it is something that must be present for enlightenment to take place. It is also a quality that every enlightened being displays. These 5 factors hold the first jhana together. Vitakka, laying hold of a thought with applied attention. It is a directed thrust of the mind, a turning of attention toward a meditation subject, such as the right thoughts of renunciation, loving friendliness, and compassion. Some English translators have called vitakka initial thought, but not in the normal sense of those words. Vitakka lies beyond normal monkey mind cognitive thought. It is likened to the striking of a bell. Vikara, maintaining right thoughts with sustained application. Often rendered as discursive thought, vikara is the mind roaming about or moving back and forth over thoughts. It is a sustained dwelling upon the meditation subject. It is likened to the reverberation or resounding of the bell after it is struck. Piti, sometimes translated as joy, rapture, enthusiasm, interest, or zest. It is not a physical feeling. It may be described psychologically as joyful interest. A high degree of piti is present in the first few jhanas. It is strongest in the second jhana. Sukha, sometimes translated as happiness, pleasure, or bliss. It may be either a physical or a mental feeling. Sukha is an indispensable condition for attaining jhana. It is present in the first, second, and third jhanas, and is strongest in the third. Ekagata, one-pointedness, unification of mind. It implies serenity and tranquility, as well as single-pointed concentration. Right thoughts. Let's look more closely at the first 2 jhanic factors, vitakka and vikara. In the first jhana, 3 right thoughts must be cultivated with applied thought, vitakka, and their opposites must be abandoned. When maintained with sustained application, vikara, these thoughts will become perfectly pure at the attainment of the supra-mundane jhanas and full enlightenment. In jhana, these right thoughts buffer the mind, hold the hindrances at bay, and keep them from entering. They have the function of guarding the mind without clinging, keeping it steady and peaceful. This is not the kind of guarding where you hold something to your chest to keep anyone else from taking it. That is greed. This is a gentle, non-grasping function. What you are guarding is your own greedlessness. You hold it gently, like a baby. The 3 right thoughts are renunciation, loving friendliness, metta, and non-cruelty, compassion. Let's look more deeply at each. The first vitakka, renunciation. Renunciation begins with the thought of generosity. You are not attached to worldly wealth, position, and power. You renounce them. You let them go. You give them away. You do not need them, and you are happier without them. The first step toward practicing generosity is giving up the desire to hold on to your trivial material possessions. This is what you do every time you let go of some petty thing and give it away for someone else to enjoy. The second step is to cultivate the thought of abandoning your indulgence in sensual pleasure in both words and deeds. This is what you do temporarily when you go off to a meditation retreat. This is what you do in miniature every time you sit to meditate. The third step is cultivating the thought of not getting involved with sensual pleasures, at least during your meditation. Abandoning the thought of desire for sensual pleasures by cultivating the resolve toward renunciation is called factorial replacement. It is replacing one thing with another, smothering one impulse by instilling its opposite. Before he attained enlightenment, the Buddha divided his thoughts into two classes. He put the thoughts of sensual desires, thoughts of ill will, and thoughts of cruelty in one class, and the thoughts of renunciation, friendliness, and compassion in the other class. When he noticed that one of the thoughts belonging to the negative category arose in him, he became fully aware of it and mindfully reflected that this particular thought was harmful to him, harmful to others, and harmful to both. Then that particular thought subsided. When another unwholesome thought arose in him, he used the same technique to overcome that thought. By this mindful reflection, he abandoned negative thoughts one by one. On the other hand, when thoughts of renunciation, friendliness, and compassion arose in him, the Buddha became mindful of their arising. Then he reflected that these thoughts aid wisdom. They do not cause difficulties. When he spent days and nights reflecting on these wholesome thoughts, the Buddha felt secure. There was no longer anything to fear from their opposites. The Buddha's instruction is that you should do the same. As a result of the right thought of renunciation, the mind becomes very calm, relaxed, and peaceful. It has no concern for anything in the world. You just let things go. You pay no attention. Your clinging and craving for ordinary things subsides. The second vitakka, loving friendliness. You have seen the danger of ill will. You have been cultivating the habit of not harboring ill will toward anybody. You have learned from experience how much you have suffered from your own ill will and that of others. After applying appropriate remedies, you have succeeded in letting go of your anger and cultivating loving friendliness. You take another deep breath of relief. Generally, the last hindrance to leave the mind is hatred. When it is gone, metta arises naturally. The void is filled with feelings of friendliness toward everyone. When you no longer push things away, you naturally feel close to everything. You feel positive toward everybody. Everybody is your friend. The third vitakka, non-cruelty. With the arising of this, you are now very glad that you are no longer cruel to people or animals. You have seen beings suffering from cruelty. You know quite well how animals and people suffer at the hands of cruel people. Having witnessed for yourself other people's cruelty, you may have felt the pain of the victims in your own heart. So you have decided not to be cruel and to cultivate compassion for all living beings. Now you are totally at peace. You feel totally secure. You have no fear that anyone will hurt you. Thoughts of cruelty fade, and you no longer have any desire to hurt or punish anyone. The natural result is compassion. You naturally feel and identify with the struggles others are going through, and you have a natural desire to help them however you can. Your heart pours out to suffering beings everywhere. The importance of vitakka and vikara. Your vitakka in the first jhana is turning toward these three thoughts. They stay, vikara, in the mind, continuously supporting the first jhana. Note the role of conscious thought in this progression. We use conscious thoughts, such as thoughts of loving friendliness, to pervade the mind and push away hindrances. When the hindrances have been restrained, we carry the subtle residue of loving friendliness into jhana. All the vitakkas work that way. Note also that we must actually work at these vitakkas, applying considerable effort at the beginning to establish a firm ethical ground. You cultivate these conceptual thoughts day and night, on the cushion during formal meditation and off the cushion in your daily life, In your meditation work, you make a conscious effort to replace unhealthy conscious thoughts with healthy ones. You replace unwholesome vitakkas with wholesome vitakkas. You root out greed, hatred, and cruelty, and replace them with thoughts of letting go, loving friendliness, and compassion for others. They become a wholesome habit that naturally permeates your jhana. The subtle remnants of these conscious thoughts prevent greed, hatred, and cruelty from invading your jhana. Nevertheless, this is not some giant struggle. You cannot get these effects through straining. You simply cultivate the ground, and the seeds grow by themselves. After establishing a solid ethical foundation for your life and cultivating these wholesome thoughts, you reap the reward. Your mind is peaceful. You feel a great gladness in having given up your hectic, grasping ways. You feel secure. You feel that you have an infinite number of friends. This is the fertile ground that grows concentration. When verbalized vitakkas turn into real, pure mental activities, they become jhanic factors. In jhana, most normal, conscious thoughts have been left behind. There are no more words. Thought in jhana. In English, the word thought is always used to mean normal cognitive thinking, like thinking about what you will buy at the store. In Pali, there is a whole range of words that can be translated into English as some kind of thought or component of the thinking process. We just don't have the terms to express these tiny but important differences unless we spend a lot of time learning a whole range of very subtle concepts. It is probably easiest to understand the nature of thought in jhana if we speak first of using a kasina, a physical object, as our meditation subject. You start out by looking at the physical object. Then, you shut your eyes and bring it to mind as a visual image. Eventually, the object comes fully into focus when you attend to it with eyes shut. It is as clear as when you look at it with eyes open. This is your learning sign. You stop gazing at the physical object and focus solely upon the learning sign. You develop it by striking at it over and over with vitakka, applied thought, and maintaining it with vikara, sustained thought. It then turns into something more subtle, like an afterimage. This is called the counterpart sign. As you practice this way, the jhanic factors grow in strength, each restraining its respective hindrance. Applied thought, for instance, counters sloth and torpor, eventually reducing it to a state of complete abeyance. When the hindrances are restrained and the defilements subside, your mind enters access concentration. This is when the learning sign is replaced by the counterpart sign. The Visuddhimagga, an ancient commentary on the path of meditation, explains the difference between the learning sign and the counterpoint sign like this. In the learning sign, any fault in the kasina is apparent, but the counterpart sign appears as if breaking out from the learning sign. It is 100 times, 1,000 times more purified. It is like a looking-glass disk drawn from its case, like a mother-of-pearl dish well washed. It is like the moon's disk coming out from behind a cloud, like cranes against a thundercloud, but it has neither color nor shape, for if it had, it would be gross, cognizable by the eye, susceptible to comprehension by insight, but it is not like that. It is born only of perception in one who has obtained concentration, being a mere mode of appearance. The counterpart sign is the object of both access concentration and jhana. The difference between access concentration and the first jhana consists not in their object, but in the strength of their respective jhanic factors. In access concentration, the jhanic factors are still weak and not yet fully developed. In jhana, they are strong enough to actually thrust the mind into the object with the full force, like a carpenter pounding a peg into wood or a stone sinking into water. In this process, applied thought, vitakka, is the factor most responsible for bringing about the mind's sinking into the counterpart sign. In metta meditation and elsewhere, we speak of thoughts of loving friendliness in jhana. Applied thought in jhana is associated with wholesome roots. It takes the form of wholesome thoughts of renunciation, benevolence, and harmlessness. What is the nature of these thoughts? You have to experience it to really understand. Words can only approximate. You use conceptual thoughts of metta to develop physical feelings. Then you turn your attention to the feelings and discover a subtle color or flavor in the mind that is the pure, non-conceptual feeling of metta. This is what you use to carry you into Jhana, and this vitakka is what you carry with you into Jhana. When using the breath as your object of focus, you use conscious thoughts to help you direct your attention onto the breath. You find the physical feeling. You drop conscious thought and dwell purely on the feeling. This is your learning sign. A spark of light sometimes appears. This signals the arising of your counterpart sign. The subtle after-image of the physical feeling of the breath is what you carry with you into Jhana. The 7 factors of awakening. One of the most important aspects of the first Jhana is that at this point you begin your progress toward liberation through a succession of 7 stages. Each stage leads to the next. They take place in the same order for each of us. No one ever skips any stage. Each stage is a natural outgrowth of the one before. These 7 stages culminate in the attainment of sotapanna, stream entry, the first stage of enlightenment. In each stage you develop a factor of awakening. The first factor, mindfulness. You need mindfulness to build Jhana. But what is the proper domain for your mindfulness? What is your frame of reference in meditation? What do you concentrate on? You can't get Jhana through concentrating on just anything. You must use certain specific subjects in your meditation. They must be things that promote dispassionate observation and reveal the truth of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Those proper objects of focus, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, are described in the Satipatthana Sutta. When using each object, you must remain ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. That means you put some effort into the thing. Do it with zest and vigor. Pay mindful attention to what you are doing and leave your day-to-day bothers behind while you are doing it. The 4 foundations of mindfulness constitute the basis and the guiding principles of concentration. Mindfulness of the body focuses your attention on the body itself and its position and movement. You see that breathing is something that takes place within the body itself. Mindfulness of feelings focuses on physical sensations. You watch them, looking constantly for their deeper nature, the way they are constantly changing and have no real substance other than what you give them with your mind. Tactile sensation is a feeling. Hearing is a feeling too. If you ignore the other mental content that arises with it and just concentrate on the pure sensation of sound vibrations, the same is true for all the senses. Mindfulness of consciousness focuses on watching thoughts and emotional reactions arise without getting involved in them. That includes things like discursive thoughts, internal conversation, pure concepts, and mental pictures. You see them as bubbles just coming up and going away without any particular meaning. You don't take them seriously. Mindfulness of mental objects focuses on seeing the inherent nature of your whole experience, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. You face directly, in real time, the changing nature of everything you experience and everything material that you can experience. You see that none of it makes you really happy, and that you are not really a somebody who is stuck in it all. You can and must think about these things. But remember that all such thoughts exist to guide you to the goal of the wordless experience of these things as the truth, exactly the way it is. Mindfulness of impermanence in any of the 4 foundations is the entry point. Seeing anicca leads you to seeing dukkha and anatta. Seeing these 3 marks of existence leads you to liberation. The second factor, investigation. Out of mindfulness arises investigation. While being mindful of the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and selflessness of one thing, the mind inevitably swings to some other thing. When that happens, you investigate that new object more closely, wordlessly looking for the impermanence, wordlessly asking, is this permanent or impermanent? As you ponder that question and pay more mindful attention to this new object, you will see it as impermanent, unsatisfactory, and without self. Can any object be permanent? The answer is no. But don't take my word for it. Investigate for yourself. Then you must investigate your mind and body with another question in mind. Where can I find something permanent in this mind and body, with its perceptions, thoughts, feelings, and consciousness? The answer will be nowhere. But hearing this will not change you. You need to perform the investigation yourself, sincerely and exhaustively. Concentration holds an object before mindfulness. Mindfulness then pays close attention to it. Then investigation finds that it is constantly changing, thus showing the signs of unsatisfactoriness and selflessness. The third factor, energy. Out of investigation arises energy. This investigation arouses your energy to look for anything permanent and push away anything impermanent. Deeper mindfulness and investigation arouse stronger effort to see deeper, subtler aspects of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Because this energy is aroused, you never tire in your mindfulness. You investigate the nature of impermanence, suffering, and the selflessness of your body. You delve into your feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness, where you find the same thing. You do it with a vigor born out of spiritual urgency. You never tire of seeing tiny, perhaps even molecular, changes in the breath. Your effort helps you make progress. This is the power of the energy factor of enlightenment. You have a natural energy in Jhana. It carries over into your normal life too. The fourth factor, joy. Out of energy arises joy. Suppose you are traveling in a desert. You are hungry, thirsty, tired. You are full of worries, full of doubt as to where you should go. You need to get water, food, shade, and help. A man appears. His hair and clothes are dripping with water. Where did he come from? Where did he get this precious water you need so desperately? You ask him. He points. He says, "Continue walking that way and you will find a forest." Right there in a clearing in that forest there is a natural lake. You continue in the direction he pointed. Then, from a distance, you hear birds singing. You hear animal noises and people talking. As you get closer and closer, you hear people jumping into the water, swimming and playing. As you get still closer, you see all kinds of birds, animals, and human beings. Boys, girls, teenagers, adults, old people. They are bathing, swimming, eating water lilies, lotus buds, lotus roots. They are drinking the water and relaxing on the bank of the lake. Seeing all this, your joy and gladness intensify. Then you jump into the lake. You swim in it, play with the water, you drink all you want. You eat the delicious lotus roots and the water lilies. You frolic in the lake for hours. Then you come out of the water and stretch your arms and legs. You lie down on your back saying, "What happiness! I am happy. I am truly happy." In this image, the gladness that arises in your weary mind when you see that fresh lake is like the joy that arises in your mind in meditation. As you are approaching the lake and hearing the sounds coming from it, your joy increases by degrees. When you jump into the water and drink, you are absolutely delirious with joy. As you eat the lotus roots and water lilies, you experience a deep tranquility. When you come out of the water and relax on the beach, you are relaxed and happy, deeply content. It might even put you to sleep. Similarly, in Jhana, joy arises slowly and increases until it turns into tranquility and happiness. Normally, you may use these two words, joy and happiness, to indicate states of excitement. Ordinarily, when you are excited, you may jump up and down. You smile. You laugh. You hug someone. You talk a lot. You sing. You kiss someone you love. You dance and even cry out of such excitement. While expressing your excitement through all these activities, you may say, "I am happy." But this is not the happiness of Jhana. Jhanic happiness is calm, peaceful, and smooth. It is not excitement. It is almost the opposite. Spiritual happiness makes you relaxed, calm, peaceful, and concentrated. Sometimes, even in meditation, your eyes may be filled with tears when you are full of this deep joy. But if you are mindful, you can become fully aware of your joy without shedding tears, without a murmur or a movement. Once you have achieved the joy factor of enlightenment, you automatically feel so much loving friendliness and compassion for all beings that a natural wish arises in your mind. May all living beings live in peace and harmony. When practicing this mindfulness of loving friendliness, this compassion for all living beings, you appreciate whatever you have. You experience appreciation of whatever others enjoy, and you feel extremely grateful for everything you have received. This is the power of joy. The joy of Jhana carries over into a joy in your normal consciousness. It is a joy that fuels your life. The fifth factor, tranquility. Out of joy arises tranquility. The calm, cool, and refreshing joy engendered by this practice makes your mind and body calm, relaxed, and peaceful. When the mind is calm and peaceful, you feel serene and tranquil. You are satisfied. The fever of anger is cooled. The fire of lust has subsided. Delusion is dispelled. Grief, pain, sorrow, lamentation, and despair have all disappeared. You no longer feel the burning of jealousy, fear, tension, anxiety, and worry. Instead, you feel safe and secure, although you have not yet achieved your final goal. At this level, you have temporary peace and happiness. The power of the deep peace of Jhana carries over. It begins to pervade your life. You live and practice your mindfulness with an ever-deepening tranquility. The sixth factor, concentration. Out of tranquility arises concentration. The Buddha said, "One who is happy gains concentration. One whose mind is filled with loving friendliness gains concentration very quickly." In the first jhana, your thoughts of friendliness, compassion, generosity, equanimity, joy, and happiness are very strong. They hold your attention effortlessly. What creates this unification of mind, this one-pointedness? It is hard to say in words, but analogies may help. Imagine that in the distance there are mountains, traditionally 37 peaks and ridges, corresponding to the 37 factors of enlightenment. Things like the Noble Eightfold Path and the 4 foundations of mindfulness. These merge into 7 major mountains, the 7 factors of awakening. Their peaks are in the clouds. A fine drizzle is falling constantly. Tiny, tiny drops of water are showering down gently nearly all the time. Occasionally it rains harder. Drops are continually accumulating. Each of these drops is a tiny moment when one of the factors dominates your mind. We all have fleeting flashes of things like mindfulness, concentration, and certainty that what we are doing is right. This is a state of scattered mind. The factors you want to be unified are occurring in rare fits and starts. These tiny mind moment droplets seep into the ground, percolate through the soil, and are purified. Harmful elements are filtered out and healthy minerals percolate in. The drops flow together, merge, and surface as tiny springs. The springs create rivulets that flow together into streams. The streams flow together into creeks. This process continues, and the water is rushing down the mountain, singing as it goes over rocks and crashing as it plunges in waterfalls. Every drop is laden with the potential factors of enlightenment accumulated within it. Eventually, they form a mighty river, a huge river like the Mississippi or the Nile or the Ganges. But the power of this river is harnessed. Someone has been very clever and dammed the river where it flows through a gorge. It forms an enormous lake, a really big lake like Lake Superior or the Caspian Sea. The lake contains all the power of all the droplets that fell on the mountains, stored as potential energy in the weight of the water. Innumerable tons of water press against the dam, trying to release their power. Your mind is still scattered, but less so. The factors have gained great potential power through being unified, but the power has not yet sufficiently concentrated to create the effect you want. Someone has been even more clever. They have put holes in the dam, small holes compared to the huge volume of water trying to pour through them. The water gushes with enormous force as it squeezes its way through those holes, turning its potential energy into the kinetic energy of movement. Now your mind is no longer scattered. The factors have been unified to release their power. Their power is now the power of concentration. There are turbines mounted in the path of the raging flow. They spin huge generators, which convert the kinetic energy into electrical energy, enough power to light Canada or a whole section of Europe. This concentrated power flows through electric lines to light bulbs in cities and homes. It is the bright flame of mindfulness that reveals the luminous nature of the mind. With this much power behind it, mindfulness blazes through the accumulated dirt of lifetimes and produces liberation. Concentration has accumulated tiny mind moments in which the various factors expressed themselves singly into a state in which they are all present together, constantly. In this state of mind, with jhanic concentration, you continue to pay total attention to your experience of change. Your awareness of impermanence is much sharper and clearer than ever before because it is backed by right concentration. Previously, before you gained right concentration, your awareness of the impermanence of all phenomena was shallow. Now it is very deep and powerful. Your mind can penetrate impermanence more thoroughly than ever before. This time you see not only impermanence, but also the fact that everything impermanent is unsatisfactory. Your mind gets tired of clinging to any pleasant experience, because the experience inevitably changes before the mind even reaches it. Even your mindfulness is changing. You may even begin to feel bored with it all. Keep watching this boredom. You will notice that the boredom is also changing. The meditation subject, as a thing, has been left behind. The mind does not focus on any separate point besides its own collectedness. One-pointedness is the mind focusing on its own one-pointedness. This power of jhanic concentration makes everything you do and think deeper. You apply the concentration in your daily life off the cushion, and it takes your mindful investigation of everything to a higher level. You see more easily into the impermanence, suffering, and selflessness of everything you are doing. Concentrated mind sees things as they really are. You become deeply disappointed with the mental rubbish you have been making and holding on to. You let it go at last, and then you are free. The seventh factor, equanimity. Out of concentration arises equanimity. Once you can see that all of the components of the body and mind, in the past, present, and future, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and selfless, something remarkable happens. Equanimity arises regarding all conditioned things. Your mind looks at everything with equanimity. Wholesome, unwholesome, physical, verbal, and mental, good, bad, or indifferent. It is all the same. It is beingness. It is simply reality. Your viewpoint is imperturbable. Then you feel a spiritual urgency. You accelerate your mindfulness practice and do it even more vigorously. When you are in this state of mind, you have deeper insights into the Noble Eightfold Path. You use your mindfulness, your concentration, and your attention to recognize impermanence. You study and pierce unsatisfactoriness and selflessness in the body and mind. You realize that all those wonderful thoughts and feelings are constantly changing on a very subtle level, and the terrible ones are constantly changing too.